Just to recoup, my name's Peter. I'm going to be talking with you today about Experience Builder. The agenda initially I told this was going to be an introduction, but I shifted the presentation a little bit to kind of give some practical examples of how we're going to be migrating from Web App Builder to Experience Builder, because I feel a lot of us are facing that challenge nowadays. So we're going to start with a quick poll. So just by a raise of hands, who is using Web App Builder today? So keeping those hands raised, keep your hands raised from here if you have opened Experience Builder and you've looked at it. All right, so a good chunk of you, keep those hands up. And of those people, who feels comfortable building an application? Okay, so we have a few strong users in the room. My goal today is to make that number get a little higher. We're going to start by talking about just a quick agenda, why we're retiring Web App Builder. I started my GIS career probably about 10 years ago, and that was our web application builder. It was great. There's reasons why we're retiring it, and it has a deprecation notice out. We're going to start by covering that. The second option is we're going to introduce you to Experience Builder, and I'm going to tell you why you should consider using it. There's a variety of key features that I'm going to go over, so we're going to help you get comfortable with that product. Then we're going to give a little demonstration on migrating an application. I'm going to do that a lot for you today. And then I'm going to leave you with some resources. Additionally, I'm going to give you some roadmap information that's important for you as you're looking for all these new apps and widgets that are coming out. So you make sure you're planning your migration process well. So let's start with the Web App Builder retirement timeline. As I said, I started my GIS career 10 years ago, and back then Web App Builder was our flagship application builder. It had a lot of great stuff. It had 70+ applications, rich URL parameters. It was the thing you use to share data or create an experience that would allow you to other users to edit that data. It was the frontier of WebGIS. But over time, our technology has changed. I would also argue that we had really great communities, and that's what made this product so great. But as I was hinting at earlier, things have changed. The JavaScript API that's the 3.x version that powers this product, is being retired as well. That's the same one that powers MapViewer Classic, for those of you that are familiar with that program as well. So all of this kind of rolls up together. But to hit a little bit more at home, in particular, we have 3 separate items. We have the Developer Edition, the ArcGIS Enterprise Edition, and the ArcGIS Online Edition of Web App Builder, all of which retire at different timelines. The Developer Edition will go first. Next year of July, it'll receive its retirement notice. And as of right now, Web App Builder and ArcGIS Enterprise is currently deprecated. Deprecation means that we've put out a notice. We've said this product is going to be sunsetted soon. All right, so prepare. The last release of ArcGIS Enterprise to support Web App Builder is going to be in the first half of 2025. So that means whatever version of ArcGIS Enterprise comes out in that time frame, might be 11.5, 11.6, I don't know the number yet. That will be the last version that supports that product. Comparably, in ArcGIS Online, since that's on our hosted infrastructure, ESRI manages, updates that infrastructure for you, we control that timeline, and our current timeline is going to be end of 2025. So before I talk about what each of these retirement notices mean for each of these products, I want to kind of educate you on what retirement is. Within ESRI, we have a product lifecycle that we follow for all of our software products. It ranges across field maps to Survey 123 to Enterprise to Online. And each of them has a stage. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but mature support is in there. It's currently in support, things of that nature. Retirement is one of them. And that means that you're not going to get any bug fixes. There's going to be no tech support. And potentially, as your browsers continue to upgrade, especially for this particular product, those applications are going to break. Things might change. And when you come to ESRI tech support, unfortunately, we're going to be saying we no longer support that product. We need to move to the next stage. The important component is down towards the bottom is your apps will continue to work until that point in time. And I'll explain a little bit more about what that means, because that confused me when I first read that article that came out earlier this year as well. So for retirement purposes, the Developer Edition is very much at your own risk. So downloads are still going to be available, but at the risk of using a retired product. So there might be security patches that aren't available for that particular product. Technical support isn't available. If you're very good at Web App Builder, keep going for it. Keep using Developer Edition, but for a lot of our users, this is not the native way to build an application. For a lot of you, you're going to be working within ArcGIS Enterprise or ArcGIS Online. and I'll throw that one up here as well. For ArcGIS Enterprise, the Web App Builder support will fall in line with that enterprise version. And I'll give an example. Within ArcGIS Enterprise 10.9.1, Web App Builder is currently supported. A lot of you will keep your enterprise systems on a certain version to support your third-party operating systems, your 911 systems, your land record system, other business systems, essentially, right? So as you continue to upgrade, you will reach a version. I'm going to use 11.5 as an example, if that's the one that retires it. It will reach it and say, okay, at 11.6, Web App Builder is no longer supported. So you can hang out at 11.5 for as long as you'd like, but at some point that enterprise version will also reach a retired state, and you will kind of push to that version. So keep that in mind as you're planning your migration. It's important to consider. For ArcGIS Online, in the end of 2025, you're going to lose what's called your building capability, or what I'm calling the building capability. You cannot edit, configure your applications anymore. They will continue to persist and function as you've designed them, but oops, if I want to change out some of the text in the header, that functionality is not going to be there anymore. So another thing to consider as we move forward in our timeline here. So I'm going to, before we get started and get too far into our demonstration, I want to talk about what Experience Builder is. For some of us here, we've used this product. For others, it's completely new. This is our new flagship builder of experiences, right? And you're going to hear me make a lot of puns about that today, but it's going to allow you to create highly configurable, scalable, and flexible applications. You're going to have a lot of those templates that you know and love from the Web App Builder versions that come down foldable. Trying to give another one. There's a couple templates that are in there that you can use, but you're going to have more flexibility in where you can place widgets on the screen. And I'm going to talk about some of those key features as well. And that's what makes this application very powerful. You're going to have a flexible design. You have the ability to optimize things on a mobile screen just as much as you would on a desktop screen. You also have widgets that are what I refer to as blind. Blind widgets and blind maps essentially do not differentiate between 2D and 3D data. They will continue to persist as you switch between a 2D and a 3D map. I've seen a lot of ArcGIS solutions start to capitalize on this. They'll put multiple maps in a singular experience to support a full comprehensive workflow, comparable to Web App Builder, where you would have to open up a new application for every map you had. Additionally, it doesn't just span within data in a map. You can search an entire enterprise organization, the Living Atlas, or ArcGIS Online, so you can reference data that is not in that map. So it used to be data lived in a map that was put into an application and allowed for that interaction. It's no longer the case with Experience Builder. You can hook into that data directly from an application interface, which is very powerful. For me, there's been a lot of different versions that have come out recently, or not different versions, but different capabilities that have come out that have really caught my eye. And in particular, at least within my customers that I work with, I've seen a lot begin to use our gallery space and then our web pages as well. This is really a resurgence of non-map based dashboards and applications. You don't need to see data. For example, I'm looking at Josh, right? We did a survey last year on our conference. I guarantee you all know where that location is going to be. If you take a survey 123 point, it's going to be in Carolina Beach. So I don't necessarily need to see that location, but I still want to pull all the metrics that we got from you. How did you feel about the food? How did you feel about the hotel space? Did you have any feedback? So I can put that into an application that's maybe more data oriented, right? I can put my mouse like one right here and still convey that information to my stakeholders in an effective manner. So all of this powers Experience Builder. And at a very high level, Experience Builder is very similar to Web App Builder in the fact that it's a guided user interface that allows you to build and create applications utilizing these templates, widgets, and data-driven decisions. You can even get so far into the weeds with this application that you can change the color scheme of individual buttons. So I really want to impress upon you the flexibility and the accessibility that you have with this application. And it all powers, cue my pun, an experience, right? So I'm going to drop into Experience Builder really quickly here. And I'm going to show just what we're dealing with. I'm going to try and get rid of this screen here. But if we go to ArcGIS Online, all of you are more than likely familiar with ArcGIS Online. Up in the top right-hand side, there's going to be what's called an app picker. We interact with all of our apps this way. If you haven't explored this button, I would encourage you to. You can come down to the bottom, find your Experience Builder application, and launch it. This takes you to a gallery of previously designed experiences. I can see how many people have viewed an experience. Its sharing level maybe isn't my favorite, or I can pop it out and take a look at it really quick. But I want to focus particularly on acclimating all of you today with a couple of elements within this application. You see here, when I create a new experience, I'm greeted with a similar interface. I get to choose my template in my design, right? There's some that we all know and love, the foldable, the Launchpad, the Dart, right? These are applications that we've used for years and things that we're familiar with. And you can continue to use those, but you can also explore some of our newer map-centric widgets or applications and templates, as well as those web pages. And for me, I always struggle to make decisions at this point. Which one is going to be fit for me? This icon doesn't really do it for me. I need a little bit more information. So I always like to showcase the preview button down in the bottom right-hand side. The preview button is great, and it gives you a really just empty canvas. So you can kind of see, what are you going to deal with? Is this going to be good enough for me? And right now you can see I can't really scroll through this particular one. So maybe this isn't what fits my needs right now. So I can also go back to my experience. I'm going to stick with what we know. One of my favorites is going to be foldable, right? I'm going to create this application and get it started. And I'm going to try and dock this back up towards the top. So really quickly, I'm going to extend it out so I can see the entire application here. So I can take a look at what I'm designing. I have a little bit of a design interface here that allows me to scroll around and see. But in the center is what I refer to as our canvas, and what ESRI will commonly refer to as a canvas. You're painting your picture here. What do you want users to see? How do you want them to interact with your data? On the left-hand side, you have a variety of information. I'm going to unlock my layout. And on the left-hand side, I can drag and drop widgets in at will. I can maybe add a base map gallery. I have to get past the splash screen. I'll talk about the live view in a minute. But you can drag and drop these base map gallery widgets in this type of an interface. And you'll notice on the right-hand side, something opens called the configuration panel. This allows you to look at and build this widget. I can open up the map in this example, select a current map, and then even drill a little bit more specifically into this particular widget based on its style. And then I can even delete it if I so choose. Continuing on the left-hand side, we have our page window. This allows you to drill down into all the widgets that are within your application. In a lot of instances, you might more than likely use maybe 10 to 15 widgets or different points within this application. So I personally get lost. I like to interact with them in this manner. If I'm having trouble clicking on them, it'll intuitively show me on the right-hand side what I'm interacting with and how I can create maybe map actions or styles based on that. I can also continue to add in data from my ArcGIS Online organization, so it doesn't have to be in the map anymore. I can also add a utility service such as printing, geocoding, a variety of other information, and I can even adjust my theme. Previously, adjusting a theme used to be a difficult concept. You adjust an individual color, you'd have to remember the hex code. It was a whole thing. But now you can just click and it'll adjust all those primary colors for us on the fly. You can also utilize a color scheme set at your organizational level. So if Joe in particular really liked the color red, right? Or maybe AECOM's color was green back in the day, right? You could set that at the organizational level. So every app that comes out of this builder can use that theme and you'll have an existing sense of brand within that application. I'm also going to click into the map and show you that you can add a map. This is usually the first step. You want to add your map, add new data, and it'll search your content and allow you to select maybe a particular map that you'd like to host within the application. It'll add you, say, okay, I'm going to add this into the application, and then you click it, and nothing else changes. It just adjusts to showcase that area that you're looking to. So I'm going to move back to my presentation. That's going to be kind of the overview. Before I leave, I want to hit on two more things. Up in the top, there's a button called Lock Layout. Lock Layout allows you to very much see what you get. You're building out an application, so maybe you want a live view of what you're seeing. So you can interact with the application without having to go to a preview section. The pop-ups will persist since those are set at the map level. You have a lot of interaction here. And then a couple of my favorite buttons are up in the top right as well, which is undo, redo, and preview, right? So I make some mistakes. You got to very quickly step back, move forward with what you're doing. So you have the ability to do that. And it will remember it almost like a Word document and even pro in some instances. So let me switch back to my PowerPoint here and we'll continue along. And we'll talk about how to migrate your applications. Okay, perfect. We're there. So migrating apps, when I first approached and created this PowerPoint slide deck for y'all today, it used to me just be, okay, you're in Web App Builder, let's just go to Experience Builder. But there are some decisions that need to be made along the way. You have a couple goals. You want to minimize the impact on your existing users. For a lot of you, you're GIS savvy folk, right? You have your individuals that are passionate about your field. But the people that are using GIS don't necessarily know how it's designed or what it is. They might know a web page or an application. For those of you that are in the field maps is their interface. That's their GIS, right? So you want to make sure you're minimizing the impact and how much you're changing it. So you want to bring over all that functionality. But at the same time, you also want to make sure you're capitalizing on better performance that we provided for you. This application builder is modern, it's sleek. It allows you to take into consideration a lot of new functionality. So if you're putting the time in to migrate, I would challenge each of you to think about revamping or revitalizing your applications. Additionally, you want to consider mobile. Mobile is a new concept for a lot of applications. For me, in my particular age group, the first place I go for anything is my phone or the internet, right? A lot of constituents and stakeholders now access things in that manner. So you want to make sure if you're republishing a parcel viewer, do you want to make a mobile version so it doesn't look as clunky on the phone compared to the desktop version? So I'm going to drop back into a demonstration again here. This is my second one. And we're going to go through 3 today. So I've just for today put together an application for the group, and I'm going to try and this is going to be interesting. We're going to do that. I created a little parcel viewer just out of Haywood County's parcel. So is there anyone from Haywood County in the room? Perfect. So so I was on a trip last week and I forgot that North Carolina had NC1 map for a minute and I had data readily available. So I've created a parcel viewer. It has a couple widgets here up in the top right-hand side and the top left-hand side. There's a filter, there's a print widget. I can filter based on land use code. I can even go over here, learn a little bit more about the widget, and even click on this and learn more about individual parcels, right? And open up and expand this information. So my goal here today, before we leave, is to adjust all of this for you. I want to transfer this application and kind of step through how we can do that and think on our feet. So I'm going to create a new template. And what I'm going to do is actually go to my content. And I'm going to do this side by side so I can kind of explain why I'm making the decisions that I'm making. And this is why we asked you to step away from the internet for a little bit, just in case there was a problem. So for this particular application, you can see here I chose the foldable theme. So I can go over to my Experience Builder and follow along. And I'm going to, at this point in time, I don't think I need to make any design changes to that desktop application. I like the foldable theme, and I'm going to stick with it. So I'm going to create this application. It might take a few seconds. And I'm going to rename it to be Haywood County Parcel Viewer. And I'm not going to focus too much on spelling just for the lack of time. And I'm immediately going to turn off block layout so I can get past this interface here. Yep. Turn on live view, hit OK, and that's that. Now I can see I'm at my map. So if we move back, I have a couple widgets that are powering this information. I have a splash page. I'll conquer that in a minute. But I want to maybe first focus on my map. So you can see here I published a Haywood County parcel map. So I'm going to come over to my Experience Builder, select this application, and select that map. Now, for a lot of us, we take for granted a lot of the contextual tools that Web App Builder provides us. It puts a scale bar in there. It puts a lot of good information in there. So I'm going to turn on, while I'm in here, some of those interactive tools so I can mimic that experience that I was talking about. So for me, I might want the ability to locate myself on the map if I was mobile, right? I might want to provide a compass. I have a search widget already built in, so I'm going to leave the search function off. You can see here there's going to be a couple widgets that overlap, right? The layers functionality is a widget that I have built into this application already. So I want to leave it as a widget, but the base map that makes more sense for me to be in the map, not as a standalone widget. So I'm going to put that in here as well. I'm going to move my zoom box, and I'm also going to add the full screen option and the measure widget, or the measure widget. Now I'm going to stop at the measure widget because I made a design decision that you might not be aware of. Over on the left-hand side here for this application, if I get past this disclaimer box, I have a measure widget. There's not a measure widget in Experience Builder. And there's reasons for that. But you can see I really quickly kind of pivoted and just called an audible and said I have the measuring functionality. Why do they have that? To measure parcels, maybe draw a line and see the distance. They're still getting all that functionality in this new application. So now I'm going to focus on the top left-hand side, and I'm going to add in some of these applications. So I'm going to get you the filter widget and the print widget. So if I go up here to the top left, I'm going to add a widget. Now for me, something recently came out that was really great. It's called a widget controller. And it allows you to almost dock widgets together and group them so they don't look as messy. So I can drag and drop a widget controller right into space. I feel like I could improve my text box here, but we're going to have to make this work. Let's see. So you can see it has these three little icons here that allow you to kind of build and add in widgets. So I'm just going to hit the plus button here and type in filter. And I'm also going to add in the print box. So for this particular instance, I'm going to start using this left-hand side, this page functionality. It's a little hard to click these from time to time, especially on a small screen. So I just want to open widget controller 2 and click on my filter widget. This allows me to start building out my filter. And I was using land use code particularly, so that way users in the field could filter what they were seeing. So I'm going to select my data, and you're going to see it'll already recognize my Haywood County parcel map and the parcels that live within it. I'm going to add in a new filter, and I'm going to use parcels, and I'm going to add a SQL expression. But I don't want it to be pre-built. I want the users to prompt and put in a value so it'll filter that information out. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to find my parcel use description. There's a parcel user code as well, but I feel the description will probably be a little bit more intuitive. And I want them to be able to select multiple. So I'm going to go is any of. I'm going to hit the settings widget or setting icon here, and I'm going to ask for values. And this is important. Par use descript, or best, however you want to pronounce that, isn't really intuitive. So I'm just going to put land use code. That might be a little bit more intuitive to the users out in the field, and I can provide them a hint if I so choose, and I can hit OK. So at this point, that widget is functional. Up in the top right-hand side, I have a style option. If I so choose, I can make it bigger, smaller. But I want to add some actions because I want it to interact with the map. So I'm going to add a trigger, and I'm going to have it target my map, and I'm just going to have it pan to the parcels. It might select a couple throughout the county, so I don't want to add any more configuration to that. The next widget I need to kind of add is this print widget. I just need to select a map here on what it would like it to be, and I can also just look at the particular style of this application. Do I like the classic view or do I like the extended view? So I'll open this up so you can see it. The compact view is a little shorter, a little smaller, right? So I want to add in that map. I'm going to provide it its utility, and that's what it's asking for up front here. And I'm just going to use the ArcGIS Online one as an example. And you'll begin to see what this application can look like. So I have a couple options in landscape printed out here. So if I extend this again, it'll give me that availability. Same thing over here for this side. This application didn't ask me if I wanted a certain arrangement or activation style. I don't really like the toggle switch, so I'm actually going to go with the apply button here. So you can see how I'm making those design decisions. Now I need to pan over to the top right-hand side somehow. So if we look back at my application, I've kind of conquered this top left-hand side. I need to look into my search widget. So if I go to my widget functionality, and particularly in the search widget, I can see that I have two queries built out. One, just using the ArcGIS World Geocoding service. So do you want to find an address? We're going to create a point for you and bring you to that point. The other is based on parcel information. So if you want to look up an owner. So let's go ahead and tackle that before we move to the rest of the widgets here. If I move over to the top left-hand side, I find my search widget. I can add a new search source. And the first is going to be a locator. So it allows me to search for an address and a point. So I can select that locator utility. And this was a little tricky for me, so I'm going to go through it slowly. The display field is what you will see when you type in the numbers. If you type in 162 Dan's Way, North Carolina, right? It's going to show, it's what it's showing. So I want to make sure we're showing the site address. One second, I have to find that magic field. I promise it was there when I put together the demo. We'll do street address. That'll be fine. And what I'll do is I'm going to go back up to the top and actually, oh, this is for, that's right. I was getting ahead of myself. So I'm just going to do the ArcGIS World Geocoding Service. And what I needed to do here instead was actually set up 2 actions. And the actions were a little tricky, still remains true. So we're creating a point when we're searching for an address. So when I have a record created, I would like the map to zoom to, I would like them to pan to, and I'd also like them to show it on the map. So I set up 3 actions and I can customize that style if I so choose. The second option I need to add is my parcels. So particularly it's sourcing to a layer. So I can search a particular layer, which is in a parcel data set. And this is the one that was tricky. So this is what you were going to see. So I want users to not see an alternate parcel number. I want them to see a site address. So I can close out of this search and deselect the alternate parcel number because I'll be honest, if I was in the field searching parcels, I don't think I had everyone memorized. I think I'd be looking for the address, right? And I can continue to come down and say, okay, what are we searching those selected fields? We just did that one. What are we displaying? I still want to display that site address. So I'm going to come in and check this box and then back out of the search and turn off the parcel. So if I wanted to test to make sure everything was functioning, I could use that live view, but I still need to add some actions. These are separate. So now I'm selecting a record with the search. So I need to come in and do record selection changes. They're going to trigger maybe a flash. And it's going to be a flash on the parcels, right? So I can add that trigger in, and then I'm going to come back and do another one, add another trigger. And you can see how this is going to begin to build on itself. So we're going to do a flash, we're going to do a zoom to. I don't think I'll need to do a filter, so I'm just going to keep it as is. So if I wanted to test out what this looked like, I could hit live view and punch in an address and maybe do deer run. I feel like there's a deer run somewhere in there, and there are. So I could select this application and hit select here, and it'll zoom to and bring me to that particular parcel. So I'm getting that functionality I'm looking for. Bless you. So we can go over to the top right over here, and I'm going to move through the rest of these widgets. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Not that I have a timeline, but maybe you do when you're moving these. So you have a couple. You have the About Me widget, the Legend, the Layer View, Add Data, and I've already done base maps, so I'm going to skip that, and we have the bookmark. So we have a couple widgets to add. So I'm going to do these by turning off the live view first, because I can't add anything when I'm in live view. And what I'm going to do is just hit the plus button, and I'm going to add a couple of those. So the first thing I'm going to add is a card. I hit the About Me widget. That is no longer, or it's currently not out within Experience Builder. So I'm going to drag and drop this over to the top so I have a similar interface, but I can challenge each of you here to think just a little bigger, right? We want to make sure if we're transitioning through a card widget, it's really just an About Me widget is text and an image, right? So we just have to mimic that. Since I had my computer, I had the images on there, I promise you, but I'm going to go ahead and just do the text today. So we're going to go ahead and hit open. I have this parcel picture here, so I could save this local to my machine and upload that image, and I'll show you how to do that in a minute. But I'm just going to copy and paste this text over. I'm going to go to the card. I'm going to change the logo to be an eye, right, to make it seem similar. And I'm also going to give it a white coloration, so that way it stands out. I can also pick what I'd like it to look like for this card widget. It might be this here. Maybe I want it to look like, maybe I don't need a button. Maybe I just need something that's more simple or maybe a little bit less advanced. So I'm going to select maybe this option here. This seems similar to what I saw before. So I'll hit start, and I don't have that image to provide, but I'm just going to double click into text here, paste, and then maybe provide some context for our users. So I might just use this as Haywood County parcel. I'm okay with that text being docked like that, so that's completely fine. So what I'll do is open up that card, and if I wanted to update the image, I could. I could select that, select an image, and the important part to note here is that once you upload it, it'll persist throughout the application. So if you use your county logo or a particular image multiple times in the application, it's very easily accessible to you. So the next option is going to be, I believe it was Add Data, which is a new widget that's come out. So we'll keep an open mind here. Let me select my widget controller, and I'm going to type in Add Data and get that one. So in this particular instance, I want to make sure it's over to the right-hand side. The layers widget is pretty much pre-configured at this point. It's just reading the map that's within the application, as well as the legend widget. Those are a little duplicative in my mind, but I'll talk with you about why that might be important a little later. For the Add Data widget, I'm going to come over to my widget controller on the left-hand side here and just make sure I have the ability to filter what they can add. Do I want them to add stuff from their local machine? Maybe not. Do I want them to search data within my organization, the Living Atlas? You can really curate this experience to be what you'd like the user to see. So I did the About Me widget, the legends in there, layers, add data, base map is in there, and the last one I need to do is the bookmark. So what I'm going to do here is what I've been doing is using the left-hand side since I'm a little pressed for space. And I'm going to add widget, and I'm going to do bookmarks. And very similar, it's going to prompt me at the start. If I select the bookmark, it's going to say, okay, what would you like your style to look like? And if I close out of my search icon here, it'll show you. And it'll say, hey, let's take a look at what our options are. Do I want it to be maybe an image with a scrolling bar, or do I want something a little bit more familiar like this? Really depends on what you'd like your user interface to be. For the purpose of this presentation, I'm going to stick with the first option. And I'm just going to source it to my map. And I'm going to say only display the bookmarks that are within my current drawings. And I'm going to say allow the user to add bookmarks. Maybe they have their own custom ones, but I want to make sure they get the standard options as well. So I have a couple bookmarks built into that map. So really quickly, I've moved probably an application in about 10 minutes, I want to say, from one space to the other. And it's not always going to be that simple, but I want to emphasize that I made a couple design decisions here. I had to pivot, be flexible, be adjustable, and build out this application. Now I want to, okay, up in the top here, you're going to see different views, and I'm going to highlight this a little bit later in another demonstration, but it's the ability to shift between different screen sizes. And so you're going to have large, medium, and small, but then also really specifically different popular dimensions for those applications. So let's go ahead and shift back to my presentation here, and we're going to resume. I hit a couple buttons here to get this perfect, so give me 1 second. Okay. Put this up top. So really quickly, we were able to start with the Web App Builder template and transition everything from one application to the other. And like I said, it's not always going to be that easy, right? You're going to have to remain a little bit flexible. So we started by changing that application and moving them over. But there's going to be a lot of availability for you to add in applications and leverage some of our new tech, right? I very quickly glanced over the window on the splash screen because I was working at the time. That was a simple copy paste of text to make sure that I could get it appropriate. I also connected a lot of our widgets together. A lot of them are working together intuitively. So that way you want maybe filter and then apply a selection or vice versa. We also saw the drag and drop interface. I personally was not a fan of the drag and drop because floating widgets. I'm really a detail-oriented person. I like them to line up well. So the widget controller is a big add for me, which you can see here in the third bullet point. So we'll persist now. But as I mentioned, you're putting all this time in these applications, so you want to make sure you push beyond the basics and consider new things. So once you get an application transitioned, maybe publish it and keep tweaking it so that way you can make sure you're capitalizing on all that new functionality. That flexible layout design, you have the ability to dock widgets on the side so people are seeing what they need to see. Maybe it's more map oriented, maybe it's more dashboard oriented, but you have a lot of flexibility and customization. So we'll step back into my application once more. Well, that's not mine, so. So for my users in particular on this application, I want to emphasize that I'm working with mobile users. So I need to configure a mobile space. So I want to talk with you a little about what that looks like. In this particular instance, yep, that'll work. So this is my mobile space. And you'll see here I forgot my title and a couple other things. So let me go ahead and change that. And this is going to I just turned on the auto setting as well. I should emphasize that. This is going to sync whatever's happening between the desktop space to all those corresponding other applications. So it doesn't do that by default. And it doesn't do that with good reason, because if it's linked, if I change something here, it will impact the desktop view, which is an important note. So you turn on auto, or how I use auto is to turn it on, sync everything over, then I switch it back to custom. So that way I'm working just within my medium screen. And I'm going to go ahead and type in my title here, because I didn't do that earlier. That's important because it will run over my legend. So I need to figure out and make some design decisions as to how I'm going to put this application together. In my experience, this whole conglomerate of words up here isn't really going to work well. So what I'm going to do is grab my widget controller. I'm going to duplicate it because it's going to be unique to this screen. The original one, I'm going to move to the pending list. Those are items that are used in other screen sizes. I don't want to delete because, again, it'll sync up. So I'll delete that over, and I can drag it down. I don't need a subtitle, personally, for this application. It's for internal users, so I'm just going to delete this. And it'll give you my warning again, so it'll kind of tell you. So again, I almost deleted something. Need to move it to that pending list instead. Now, for me, I think I can probably get away with moving all these applications towards the bottom, but I want to make sure I'm only providing them the essentials. Now that I've duplicated this widget controller, like I said, I'm not a big fan of having a layers and a legend in my application, so I'm just going to save some space and delete the legend widget. They probably will still need their About Me icon and a couple others, but they probably don't need them in two separate spaces, right? So I can grab this widget and actually just drag and drop them all into here. And then I can bring it down to the bottom. And this was a lot more screen, so bear with me, folks. Now that I have it down towards the bottom, you can see it's giving me a preview. It says something else is in your way. It's going to be the widgets up in the top, so I'm not going to have to worry about that because I'm moving them. But I'm going to expand this even a little bit further. So I'll click on the widget controller. Just add it. And expand it out so that way we can see all of our widgets in one space. Now I'm going to make some advanced design decisions here. I'm going to try and make this a little bit more intuitive for our users. I'm going to put it in the center. And I'm also going to make sure if we're working on the widget controller, I'm going to go down to the advanced functionality in the bottom right. And I'm going to adjust the color scheme so that way when I'm selecting a particular widget, it's actually going to come up as a really deep blue. And I'm going to do the same for if you're hovering over the widget. So that way, if users are clicking on something, they'll know they'll have it selected and they won't get confused. So if I came over to this application and switched it to live view and came down towards the bottom, you can see as I hover over it, I'm really controlling that particular functionality, which is nice. I'm going to peek at my notes here to make sure I'm not missing anything else because this is an important part of the demo. 1 second. In this particular instance, we have everything else. I need to hit live view and I can go ahead and see a lot of this stuff comes from the bottom up, right? So if I wanted to maybe change the interface, I could do that. So I don't need all this space for the filter. Maybe I want to do a more bottom up approach. So if I go to the live view, turn that off, I can customize that by going to the widget controller. And I can switch that to be a floating dock space instead of a fixed dock space, right? You can also control some other options here if you'd like to adjust this application. So really quickly, I've changed the interface between my application to present in different ways. So I'm capitalizing while I'm redesigning this application to make sure I'm getting all that new feature functionality. I only hit on a couple here. Like I said, I deleted a title, adjusted a widget. You can get very granular if you'd like to. I can change the appearance of this widget if I wanted to. I like the search widget as it is with an address replace. It gives some suggestions, but you can make that just a singular icon if you like. That's a search icon. So if you really want to focus on the map, you can. If you really want to focus on the widgets, you can do that as well. If I want to test and see if I want to change a different screen size, I can shift this and you're going to see that screen size, say that 5 times fast, change. So again, I have a lot of flexibility, a lot of availability. I was going to show you up here in the top right hand or top left hand side an image of Haywood County's logo. Like I said, I'm working off of a different machine, but I'll show the point. The image, if I uploaded it, wasn't really going to be viewable. And in Web App Builder, it's stuck there, right? You couldn't really do too much with it. So in this application builder, you can extend this to be larger and bigger, so that way people can make sure they're working within the authoritative source. So a lot of these small nuances, if you stack them on top of each other, get really powerful. We're going to switch back to my presentation again. Fine. And we're going to talk about some migration resources. There it is. All right. So now that I showed you how to migrate, there's a couple things moving forward. You want to get to the good stuff, and I know I'm a little close on time, so we'll wrap it up so we have time for questions. The first thing we're going to talk about is the migration resources that I promised you. There's a lot of new enhancements that are coming out with our widgets. I was talking with Michael earlier, and he said he developed an add data widget. And I found it really funny that we released an add data widget a couple months ago, but Michael was ahead of the curve. So claps out to Michael. But we had a couple other widgets come out as well. We had some enhancements come out. For those users that want to get intuitive with our existing applications, right, for non-GIS users, you can embed our software into experience builders such as Business Analyst, ArcGIS Indoors, Survey 1, 2, 3. We brought some new widget functionality as well. Our development team has stopped focusing on Web App Builder and enhancing it. We're just full steam ahead on Experience Builder at this point. So you're going to see a lot of widgets come out. We see the base map gallery. That's one that's probably long been needed, as well as the Near Me widget, which is going to be, you know, how many hospitals are within a 3-mile radius of me, right? A lot of functionality that we're familiar with. You see the swipe widget is out, so we can even swipe and interact and slice 3D data open, so we can see maybe 3D and 2D data in the same aspect. So a lot of good content. And this is the slide I wanted to share with you, and I'm going to progress one forward because I've highlighted some that are my favorite, and they're all coming, ironically. So all in the solid yellow dots are going to be widgets that are available right now in ArcGIS Online. The ones with the 75% icon, they're coming, they're planned. The ones that are empty are currently not being evaluated or are not planned. So when we talk about migration, I wanted to share this with you so you can consider that as you're moving forward. There's a lot of good functionality coming out here, and I'm going to transition once the phones go down, so that way I know everyone's got their picture. That's okay. Perfect. And now this is Enterprise. So Enterprise is the same, just a little color-coded, right, based on version, and you can't see it down at the bottom, but green is 10.81, blue is 10.9, purple or pink maybe is 10.91, and 11 is gray, and 11.1 is yellow. So you see a couple of options here for you to see which version is available at which option, but you see it remains relatively consistent. In total, there are 16 widgets that are not in the plan to be migrated. But you can see here some of these, the functionality is migrating to other options. So a good way for me to explain this is related table charts. If you've used ArcGIS Online, or maybe you're not aware, that's available within the map viewer now. So you can view your related table charts in an application, but it's just based out of the map. Public notification is now an instant application, or it used to be a solution. It's now an instant app. It used to also be in the Web App Builder application as well. So we're bringing all the functionality there. We're just making sure we're evaluating where we put it, and you have to integrate it all together, right? So you have to, I would encourage you to explore these different options and maybe evaluate your workflows. For the related table charts, in my opinion, I think it's in the right spot, right? The new map viewer, that's where the data will live. And you can create those charts, and the application will read that. And you see as well some analysis coming through. So I'm going to provide you a couple QR codes here next, but this page I find is really important when we're migrating from Web App Builder to Experience Builder. It tells you the workarounds, it tells you what's coming. If you have a particular, public notification widget that you're really working on, it'll detail out what we've done with that and what our plan is for it, so you can make those design decisions as you're moving through. So I'll put the QR codes up here for a minute so you can get an at a glance. That's your widget migration status. That's always online and available for you. And then you also have migration documentation. The product team in particular on this particular application is really watching the ESRI community. And I'm talking ahead on my slides here, but I would encourage you all to post if you have problems or you would like enhancements regarding those particular options. They listen to those, take them into consideration, and bring them into the release. So if you keep it to yourself, it might stay there for a while. So put it out there. See, there's probably someone else encountering the same problem. On the roadmap, we just had analysis released into the new map viewer. So we're going to be bringing analysis to Experience Builder, as well as related table editing. That functionality also came to the new map viewer. And as a result, it will be coming to Experience Builder. So you might see a trend there. We're also going to be putting in Q1 a mobile first design option. I talked about people like myself being glued to their phones. That's just me. Might be your stakeholders too. But our Experience Builder right now encourages a desktop first design, and then you have to go design the mobile. We're going to flip that script a little bit and allow you to design the mobile first, so you can create mobile first applications, especially if it's more out in the field and no one's going to be using it on a desktop. There's also a couple more options coming out, such as reporting, which I think is going to be really interesting, as well as batch attribute editing. So keep an eye on the Arc news pages and our documentation. So I wanted to conclude here. This is the same agenda slide. We talked today about Web App Builder, why it's going away. 3.x API is being retired, and with it, a lot of other products. The introduction to Experience Builder, we got your feet wet a little bit in the Canvas configuration panel and the ability to use the building blocks on the left-hand side. And then I showed you how to migrate an app. And in some instances, I had to call an audible, right? I had to change my play and say, okay, the About Me widget is not there. I need to maybe use a card, get some similar functionality. So brainstorm together, lean on your account team, your ESRI representatives, or tech support, depending on which one you're using, to kind of come to that solution. And then we covered what was new. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up for questions, if there are any. Yes, right in the front. Oh, perfect.
First of all, plug for my presentation at 3 o'clock, Greensboro's new experience,
Okay.
GSO
Perfect.
near me. But great presentation. Like you're really showing a fantastic way to get from an app that we all know and love to a new app that has a ton of power.
Mm-hmm.
There are definitely some things, if you're trying to build from enterprise, that you're not able to do the same way as an ArcGIS Online.
Sure.
But it's getting there.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing, and I keep asking, I've got a ticket for it out there.
Yeah.
Advanced formatting
Mm-hmm.
in lists.
Yeah.
Because for now, I build a lot of dashboards and call them with URL parameters,
Sure.
just so that I can keep using the change this text to green if this value is such. But advanced formatting would be pretty much put the seal on the box for me to be able to move to Experience Builder just exclusively. But
Perfect.
Did you hear anything about that coming to that list widget anytime
Give
soon?
me your name one more time.
Keith Watkins.
Okay, so Keith's bringing up a great point. To answer your question, Keith, I haven't heard anything about advanced formatting for Experience Builder yet, but if you've used it in Web App Builder and Enterprise, it's more than likely coming. Like I said, the widgets are coming out a lot faster now than they used to. But Keith also brought up a really good point I missed in my presentation. The only bad question is one that's not asked. So how that applies to Experience Builder is he has submitted a ticket. I have 400 customers roughly that I work with on any given day, and all of them have tickets out. A lot of them have enhancements logged. The only way we get to figure out stuff like Keith is if you submit that ticket, we triage it and then get that information. Like you said, it's been guided to develop, I assume, right? So the fastest way to get your stuff into Experience Builder is to log a ticket or let your ESRI representatives know, so that way we can get that moving. So to answer your question, I haven't heard anything about advanced formatting, but you're doing the right thing. And if there's an enhancement logged, get behind it on the ESRI community, and it'll be in there soon. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Peter, we have a question from the chat.
Okay.
What is the Web App Builder retirement time frame? I know you touched on
Let me go. The Web App Builder retirement timeframe, just for folks online, I'll put it up here in the top, is roughly Q4 of 2025. But like I said, it depends on your version. So I'll put it up on the screen. Developer Edition is July. ArcGIS Web App Builder is going to be in Enterprise whenever that version comes out in the first half of 2025. But like I said, you could hang on to that version for a good chunk of time until it reaches mature support, and then you'll have to migrate. And then online is going to be Q4 of 2025. So that's probably the date they're asking about. But perfect.
Thanks.
Yes. We're going to go in the front, and then I see you in the back as well.
So Experience Builder is one of those things that tends to be really fantastic for public facing interfaces. But I work for a county government, and one of our biggest concerns is ADA compliance.
Sure.
And I know previously when I've done it, I have never been able to find like any sort of paper that like tells us how to make it the most ADA compliant it can be. But I know that tends to change on a daily basis. So do you know, is there any sort of documentation about how to make an experience ADA compliant?
And your name is?
Marissa.
Marissa. Okay. So Marissa asked about ADA compliance and how that can be taken into account. So we just released some accessibility configuration within Experience Builder that allows you to get a lot more compliant in that area. I don't have documentation on it, but if you get me your business card or your contact information, I can reach out to our product team and get you that answer with a little bit more detail, because that's probably something they need to be aware of. It's not out.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome. And in the back, in the yellow, unless we have an internet question, I'm kind of alternating between the two. Okay, perfect.
So when you're working with a filter or a search widget, it kind of generates an SQL expression down there in the corner. Is there any way to work directly with that expression, or
Directly with the expression for the SQL query?
Mhm.
And your name is?
Tyler?
Tyler. So in my experience, you should be able to, but I actually haven't clicked that box yet, in all honesty.
I know if you click the box, it won't allow you.
So
to.
yeah, I got the feeling that you might have clicked that box already. So if
And
not,
the reason I ask is
yeah.
if you're working with layers from ArcGIS Pro, it seems like if you overwrite or replace that web layer, that connection between Experience Builder and the layer no longer exists, and you have to redo your filter widget for that.
sure. So if you
If you could-
overwrite a web layer, yes, the URL parameter will change, and as a result, any application link to that URL breaks. So
It
that will,
seems like if you could copy and paste that SQL expression, that would kind of
well, so I think
speed
there's
that
why do you overwrite the feature layer? That'd be my question to you.
I don't know if I can honestly answer that. Just different users, that's how they
Sure.
do it.
So what for you, Tyler, right? I would recommend looking into a truncate append methodology that's called emptying out a feature service, in particular a specific layer, and then appending in all the new data or updating it in a different manner, because your problem sounds more related to the changing URL instead of the filter widget itself. Going back to your question, like you said, I don't think you can edit the SQL query. I think there's a lot of power there because I prefer typing it out and kind of visualizing what it's going to be. But as of right now, if you click that and it's not there, then it's probably not there now. So I bet if I opened up mine, but I'd like to talk with you after about that workflow. We can maybe drill that down a little further. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Right down in front.
Hi,
Hello.
so I saw that that ESRI is releasing a reporting feature for the Experience Builder, and I was wondering if you know what kind of reports those are going to generate. I vaguely remember Web App Builder having a reporting feature, but when I think of the sort of reports that I'm usually asked for, they're usually feature reports, sort of like the ones that Survey 123 can generate.
I have not looked really in depth at the reporting functionality that's coming out since it's still in beta. It's on my list of things to do to become familiar with, but I would hope it would look like Survey 123, right? But I can't confidently tell you what it will look like.
Okay.
I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
But give me your contact information again. It'll be the primary reason. I'll try and get you that information as I can. Okay.
Thank you.
Awesome. Any other questions?
I actually have one
Sure.
kind of following on from
Yeah.
Tyler's question.
Mhm.
Have you tried or had success with AGO Assistant, and can you edit Experience Builder apps with the AGO Assistant?
So, Andrew, right?
Yeah.
Andrew's question is about the ArcGIS Online Assistant, and for those of you that might not know what that is, it's an ability to edit and copy over and migrate content from one org to the next. Similar to Tyler's question, I'd want to begin to understand how you're editing Web App Builder currently with an ArcGIS Online Assistant.
Oh, well, I'm not.
Okay.
But his question about, replacing a layer, the URL changing,
Yes.
that's a surprisingly common
Yep.
like workflow for me, is go in there, replace the object ID and the URL in the XML using the AGO Assistant so that everything works again.
Okay. Yeah, I would want to brainstorm a little bit with you on that one.
Okay.
So I've never edited an application in the ArcGIS Online Assistant. My understanding of that platform is that it's meant to move, migrate, copy, right? Copy and clone content. I've never seen it used to directly edit. I imagine you're working within the JavaScript, right? And editing in that functionality.
Yeah, this is mainly with dashboards
Okay.
that I've had to do it in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, is it? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
So I ran into that problem a lot. through development, and we even have hosted layers we put out to ArcGIS Online from our SDE. And we have a process that goes through, and we don't do the truncate and append, which works well for our enterprise stuff, but we do delete the service and then republish it. And so that changes that item ID. What you can do is you can create a feature layer from the service URL for whatever layer you're working with and call that the parcels. And then you add that feature layer to the dashboard or to the experience builder. And so when the underlying URL changes from the other one, you can just change the URL for that new feature, and the dashboard still looks at the exact same item. The data beneath it changes. So you're not having to worry about that item ID any longer. And we use that for our enterprise, all of our hosted layers as well, because we have these processes that change that ID periodically, but all the layers that we build, all the categories, all the tags, those stay the same, and all the dashboards and experience builders still consume it the exact same way.
Power of the users.
Great. Yeah, let's talk more later.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, got 5 minutes left, but there's no more questions. Let's
Awesome.
yeah,
Thank
let's
you,
thank
guys.
Peter for the
Appreciate
great
it.
presentation.